to Sekou Style. Today we will be diving into a thought-provoking topic that challenges the notion of leadership in Africa. Are you ready? If you're new to this channel, you know what to do. Please subscribe. And if you've been part of the family, and we are growing steadily, if you've been part of the family, please share and invite more people to come, and be part of this lovely family. So today we're going to be diving into a thought-provoking topic that challenges the notion of leadership in Africa, the conventional notion that we all know of leadership in Africa. Let's talk about it. We will look at the recent coup in Guinea, Mali, Bamako, Burkina Faso, and Niger, to analyze the type of leadership young Africans are yearning for. Are you ready for that? Good. Now you're in the right place. If you're ready for that, let's do it. So, young Africans are on the lookout for transformative leadership or transformative leaders who can truly make a difference in their lives. But the question becomes, is democracy or democratic leaders the answers? As we could see from this school. Let's explore. Let's dive into it. Let's look into it, right? All right. Now, we have to rethink leadership in Africa. Now, when we think of leaders, usually we associate them with democracy in the African context, at least since I was there as a baby, right? But is democracy really the path to leadership or towards progress in our countries in Africa? There are some exceptions, but generally, is democracy, or right now as it is democracy the path to progress or towards progress in our countries? Many young Africans are questioning this assumption and seeking leaders who can bring about tangible changes or change in their countries. This is where the notion of transformative leadership comes into place. What does transformative leadership means and how does it look like? You might ask. I ask too. It is about leaders who prioritize the need of their people, stand up for their rights, and work towards improving their lives. Meaning you prioritize your people, you stand up for their right, you work hard towards improving their lives. Those are the transformative leaders that the young Africans are looking for. These leaders are true catalysts to change in the mind of young Africans, and they are really true catalysts to change globally. So, the question becomes transformative leadership versus democracy. Now, wait a bit. Is democracy the right route that we could use to transformative leadership? Some argue that we focus on a genuine, transformation may be the path to democracy, right? While others says that, transformative leadership will lead to a genuine democracy. So this is an argument here. I can't say who is right, but the notion that we are already seeing that this is being thought of, acts is something that we all should sit down and start thinking about, right? But how can we shift the paradigm of leadership, right? We need to look at recent examples in the continent and start looking at what can be done to make sure that these transformative leaders or transformative leaders are the democratically elected leaders instead of the other way around. Right? Recent event highlights this dilemma, especially recent events in countries that I already named: Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and most recently Niger. The coup in this country really, make people question their leaders. It makes people start seeking alternative leadership and solution. When you listen carefully to the young people, you listen to the people on the ground. They just want alternatives. They are tired of the same old democratically elected leaders doing same old, either pandering to the West, begging all the time, despite their country having a lot of resources, despite all these things, despite the riches of the countries, despite the young population, the vibrant young population, leaders are not taking advantage of that to make their country more transformed and to drive an agenda that will be inclusive and push a transformative agenda forward, and yet they are still pandering to the West and doing everything that the West wants for them to do. So these instances indicate that there's a need for leaders. And when I say these instances, I'm referring to these coup d'etats, that there's a need for leaders who understand their people, who will not just pander to the West and give in to everything that the West wants for them to get. So this is a momentum that now leaders who are democratically elected leaders should start thinking about ways how they will be able to transform their country, or how they'll be able to empower the next generation to do such transformation. So leading from a democratic leadership perspective to a transformative. And why these military leaders as well, the coup leaders, need to start thinking how they could use their transformative ideas that the people put them in to change to democracy or something, a leadership that will benefit their people, which is mostly transformative leadership, right? To understand this better, we need to, take a step back, really. We need to look at the historical perspective of it. Now, historically, the West has supported leaders who don't champion democracy, but serve their own interests. We all know that. We're seeing people like Mobutu Sese Sekou, in Zaire during the Cold War. The West is supporting him. We're seeing a lot of leaders. He's just one of the guys that comes as an example in my head. But there are a lot of leaders who the West have supported in Africa, so-called democratically elected leaders, whom the West has supported, but they were serving the West's interests. It raised the question, are democratically elected leaders always the best for Africa? Now you see what the young people are now calling for a solution. That's the question that we all ask. Are democratically elected leaders the best for Africa, especially the Sub-Saharan Africa? I will leave you, the viewers, to answer that. And I hope that you could elaborate even better than I could, right? But I know I could tell you that it is a complex reality on the ground. How complex it is a complex situation that we need some solutions to. Some democratic elected leaders may not always be in the best interest of their people, is the facts, right? They may align with, external forces or engage in shady dealing, ultimately impacting Africa and citizens. So we are seeing it when you look at the Panama Papers. Some African leaders were doing shady stuff, and up to now, different countries. These are democratically elected leaders doing shady businesses in their countries with their family members and other things. Corruption to get money, to bring in shady investors. Why the masses are suffering, right? So this begs for what? A new perspective in leadership, a new perspective, right? So what is the way forward? I guess that's the question. A new perspective. We need to think, moving forward, how can we improve the situation that we are discussing? Because every African, at least most Africans that I talk to, know about these issues. It is time for a fresh perspective. Instead of, one size fits it all, like the entire the Sub-Saharan Africa has to be democracy. Because that's a one size fits all. That's the Western notion that democracy is the best solution for Africa, regardless of what it is. Instead of that one size fits all, we need to start looking at different ways of leadership and different way of transforming the people's lives, right? Perhaps Africa should focus on nurturing leaders who are genuinely, there for the Africans. Meaning we need to be deliberate in looking for leaders and making our countries, because there's a blanket statement when you say Africa, but mainly our different countries. The new generation needs to start focusing on leaders who will be able to prioritize transformation and the well-being of their people. Leaders who will step up for their people. Leaders who will be there for you. Forget about the bag of rice, politics. Forget about people who are coming to buy your vote. Give leadership to those who really want to transform, people who have proven record that they could transform leadership in your country. Give those people an opportunity, right? That is the new perspective that young Africans need to start thinking about, and Africans in general. Moving forward, leadership should matter. People who we elect or people who are leading should be vetted. Whether it's the military leaders who are coming in, they should be people with proven record and people who could actually step up when needed. You see young leaders who start stepping up, and you see the countries and within the continent, and the continent as a whole will start moving forward because we have what it takes. But we have leaders who are in bed with the enemies of the continent, and they are constantly, although quote unquote they are democratic leaders, but they are constantly killing the people. They are constantly suffering the people because of their weakness. In conclusion, it is clear that young Africans are looking for leaders who could enact changes within the continent, within their countries, within their lives. They are looking for vibrant leaders who are transformative, who are capable of making things happen. And it is time for those leaders to step up. Because it is clear that when you look at the case of Guinea, you look at the case of Burkina Faso, you look at the case of Mali, and now Niger, young people are yearning for transformative leaders around the continent. Or leaders who are thinking, forward-thinking, leaders who will care for them, leaders who will take them out of the misery. That doesn't necessarily need to be a democratically elected leaders. That's what these countries have proven so far. So let's continue the dialogues and remember that the journey towards transformative leadership is worth exploring in Africa. And this is time for Africans to start really looking at what kind of leader they want. Whether it's the democratic leaders who usually, again, the West has come and forced this democracy down our throat at some point. And some countries have done well in democracy, but you could see that leaders who actually care for their people, whether they came through coup d'etat like Thomas Sankara, J.J. Rowland, I could name a couple of the guys who came and changed the system and put it for the best, right? Whether they came through coup d'etat or through democratically elected elections, free and fair election, they have been those who with vision for the continent to move the continent forward. So, this is Sekou Kessley again. I'm signing off on Sekou Style. Stay curious, stay empowered, my fellow Africans. Thank you for listening.